Awesemo, here we go. It is the NBA Live Before Lock Saturday edition. It is myself. It is Terry McBride, T McBee Digital, B21 over there on the Twitter sphere. This is crazy, Terry. You've now, this is your first basketball show, I believe, at least of this season.
Yep, first one of this year, first one ever.
Excellent. Well, you're now a triple threat because you've been on air for all three of the shows now, or all three of the main sports. So congratulations. Always a milestone. It's my first one of the year, and we were messaging beforehand, and I said, the first one, it can always be a little bit rough. It's, you gotta pay attention, you getting all your stuff set up and everything. And then I broke a light about 20 minutes before we were going on air, and it just glass everywhere in my office and in the carpet. So I had to clean that whole mess up and didn't get to all my good stuff. But fortunately, we're good to go. We've got 9 games. We'll walk through them. We have all sorts of content for these. I'm going to drop, let's see, here is the Cash Building Blocks article. Let me put that into Slack or into the YouTube chat. We also this year are putting Adam Scherer's deep dive article in front of the paywall. That gives you everything you know. He's talked about every viable player on the slate, going game by game. I'm going to drop that in there, and then we're gonna kind of hustle here. We're going to go game by game. There are going to be some that we just kind of say, guys, there's really not a lot of plays here, because we have 18 teams to break down. We're going to want to spend a little bit of time on Houston discussing that. For those of you that don't know, they're missing 6 players tonight due to COVID contact tracing. Sounds like the Cleveland Browns are also running into that issue for tomorrow's game. So, hey, we're living in the middle of a global pandemic. So we're going to take this as we come. And then fortunately, what we have is the news god, El Negro Loco, who will be vetting and giving us any of the news that we need that is going to be key. So I'm only playing tonight on DK. I've dialed things back a little bit because I knew this was going to be a disaster, but had some fun there on the Christmas Day slate. Ended up taking down the quarter jukebox, the 12,500 one. Won $600, got first place. That lineup, I only put one lineup in the Millie Maker. That would have been second overall. My other one, min cashed, but it was a good night. It's a good night.
So. Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I had a bit of a slow start. Came in, had some lineups well over the cash line, but not well enough. Kind of a day for me, and slow start to the year, but looking forward to turning it around with also limiting my entries today. I'm kind of just playing the 20 max on FanDuel and then throwing those into the big GPP as well. So that's a little bit of a limited, since we're going to be crashing into lock while on the show for the first time. Should be fun.
Yeah, and we'll see. I've got to set some stuff, got to do some things, but we're good here. So let's break her down here. We're going to go game by game. Oklahoma City Thunder, Charlotte Hornets. This one's going to be a little bit interesting. The new look Thunder. We don't have Steven Adams. He is now with the Pelicans. We also do not have Chris Paul. He is in Phoenix. So this is going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's team. We got a nice value on DK with George Hill at 3,400. If you're playing cash, he should be in your lineup. We also have some intriguing value options in Lou Dort and Darius Bazley. A little bit more on DK, in my opinion, than on FanDuel. And then you've got Al Horford, who I think a lot of players are turning to. This is someone I am not overly excited about. So here's the kind of the first differentiation point that I wanted to hit on, and there'll be like 4 of these throughout the game, and then we'll get your thoughts here on this one. So he's coming in about 35% ownership on DK. So here's what the background we need to know with Horford. He's 33. This is his 14th season. Yes, he was not in the greatest of situations with Philadelphia last year. However, he wasn't bad. So when he played with both Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons on the court, he averaged 0.6 fantasy point per minute. If either one of them was off or on, just one of them, he averaged about 1 fantasy point per minute. He actually was not as bad even when it was just him and Embiid. So for his career, he averages, more recent career, he averages about a fantasy point per minute. If we're putting him at 32 to 34 minutes and we're going to give him a fantasy point a minute, I'm not seeing the upside, Terry. So I see upside with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I see upside on DraftKings with George Hill. I think Horford is at least in tournaments, there are so many other options we can go to. I don't really care for him. What is your thought here from the Oklahoma City Thunder?
So I see where the opportunity that people are seeing with Horford is coming from, for sure. Kind of like you mentioned, last year in Philly, he didn't really have to be that guy in terms of usage. He had better players and stars around him, so he could kind of fill that secondary, tertiary role. But then, like you said, when he was on the court without those other players, he was seeing a decent amount of usage, still getting up 1.07 DraftKings points per minute last year. So he does have some capability, but he's just a guy that, even when he's in the right spot, I've been burnt by him before, and he's not a guy I fully trust or I'm ever really comfortable rostering. What I do like about him on FanDuel is his boom percentage. Just looking at our boom bust tool, we get a nice median projection on him, and then he's up around the 45% boom on my last update with only a 10% ownership over on FanDuel. So I think he's more in play over there. You've always got the opportunity cost at the center spot over on FanDuel. On DK, obviously, you can use him in, 19 different positions, I think. But you're getting him at a much higher ownership. He's 4 times his owned. He's like 2.5 times his owned over there. So you're getting him a lot more owned, and he's coming in at a lower boom percentage on DK. So I don't love the play. I'm kind of with you. He would make it into probably some of my lineups running a full slate of 150. If I was running just a 20 max, I'm not sure I would get to him on DK. FanDuel may be a bit of a different story. I might mix him in a little bit just because I think there is a little bit of advantage with that ownership there.
All right. Anything else you want to hit on this side?
I think SGA, who you mentioned, definitely in play. He's a guy who is going to be the focal point of this offense. The entire rest of the team is basically gone. So he's a guy who I think we're going to see get a ton of usage, ton of time on the floor in various scenarios. He's going to be closing games, no problem there. So I definitely think we can see him in play here. Just taking a look on, he's, again, another guy on FanDuel in particular. He's not getting a tremendous amount of ownership when compared to his boom percentage. Taking a look over on DK, he's a lot higher priced. So you're getting not nearly as big a boom percentage, and he's getting a relatively close amount of ownership. So I don't love him over there, but on FanDuel, I think he's a pretty good play. And then George Hill's getting a ton of popularity over on DraftKings just as a super cheap option, 3,400 on DK. He's a guy who's going to see some volume, going to see some minutes as a point guard in that offense. We've got him pegged for 28 on the last update. So only 3,400 on DraftKings. FanDuel's got him priced up at 5,000. I don't think he's in play at all over on FanDuel, and the ownership reflects that. But he's firmly in play as a value play over on DK.
All right, let's hit the Charlotte side here. Gordon Hayward had nice results dealing with a fractured finger here, but he's playing, no limitations. Maybe it helps his shooting. 11 for 18, not too shabby there with his debut with the Hornets. You've got Terry Rozier. He was raining down the threes. He was 10 to 16. Probably not going to see that happen. That kind of caused a little bit of usage to go away there from Devontae Graham, but he was getting some assists. We saw a disappointing PJ Washington outing. He played 21 minutes, even though he started. He had just a 12% usage rate. The interesting thing there is we do not have Cody Zeller, who is out with fractured left hand. So there's going to be probably 20 minutes up for grabs. I'm guessing that's going to land with PJ Washington and Bismack Biyombo. I see people asking about Biyombo here starting their cash lineups with. I think absolutely on DK, we get 2 centers there. It's a little bit more helpful for us. And then you had Melo Ball coming off the bench. He's a rookie. He's going to be up and down. He's kind of the true globetrotter, playing for a lot of different teams, not a lot of structure. The talent's there. The passing is there. I don't really want any part of him. So for me, I'm condensing everything down to Biyombo, a little bit of Gordon Hayward at 7,300 on DK. Just do know that he has that broken finger. What do you like or dislike from the Hornets side here?
Yeah, I'm with you. Biyombo's another guy that, I don't really trust him. 24 minutes, I think he'll probably come through and put up the numbers that we need him to. Just taking a look, he was 0.92 I've got for in 2019, 2020, 0.92 DraftKings point per minute. So he's a reasonable play when he's getting time. It's just if we run into anything that limits him from the 24 minutes that we've got him at to a 20-minute outing, an 18-minute outing, you're really limiting that performance really quickly. So I never trust him, but given the price and the spot on both sites, I think he's definitely in play. Very solid boom percentage on both sites, and not drawing a ton of ownership either. So at least as of my last update, so I think he's a firm play there. I do like the idea that PJ Washington's going to get those backup minutes, and I think he's definitely an interesting player on this slate as well. I can get to him, and we saw him produce when he had the opportunity last year. It was 1.08 DraftKings points per minute in 370 minutes without any Zeller, Biombo, or Willie Hernan Gomez on the floor last year. Thank you, Adam, for that one. Be citing his article quite a bit today. So I think we can get to some PJ Washington here. I benefited a little bit from Terry Rozier on opening night. He was one of the few things I did get right that night. So I think I could probably go back to the well on him again here, and maybe a little bit of Devontae Graham and Gordon Hayward mixing in. So I'll have some of these guys. There's not really any plays that I'm super excited about, but they're guys that, across 150 lineups, I would be getting to some Graham, I would be getting to some Hayward, and definitely getting to some Rozier.
All right. No sponsor today, but you know who is sponsoring us? Awesemo. So we're going to talk about some of our good products here. We've got 4 hours straight of NFL content starting off at 9 a.m. tomorrow. You're going to get Adam Scherer and Josh Engelman kicking things off, and we go into Week 16. It's kind of a unique slate. We had 3 games today. We had 1 on Friday. We got 1 on Monday, and we got Sunday night. We're back to kind of a smaller player pool because we've got some COVID issues. And wait for it, a lot of the really good teams are on today and Monday, and Friday we saw an exciting game as well with 6 touchdowns there by Alvin Kamara. So definitely check out our NFL content. You want to win 30 free days of Awesemo All Access? Here's your chance. If you win, I'm dropping the link into chat. If you win the Fred Van Elite Fan Club, it's just $1. It's a 100-man must fill to run. It pays out the top 20 just like normal over there on DraftKings. But if you win this contest with an Awesemo avatar, I'll get you 30 free days of premium content. Well, technically, I'm not allowed to touch technology, so I will ask Terry nicely to set you up with 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. You guys may not know it, but most of us at Awesemo have behind-the-scenes duties as well, so we're not always just doing content and other things. We have to wear many hats. So check that out. 11 more spots in there. I have to play Fred Van Vliet. You do not. So there you go. It's an easy way to do it, but we already are 1 for 1 this year of giving away 1 free month of Awesemo premium content. Want to get in now real quick? Get 7 days of Awesemo NBA All Access for just $1. Use the promo code Caruso, and that will get you in. That's only the 1 week package, but it's just $1. We're basically giving that one away. That offer lasts through the 29th. All right, Terry, let's get on to our next game here. Not very exciting one. So we'll just kind of be able to skip a little bit of this one. So for the Cleveland side, we do have Kevin Love should be back. He played 10 or 15 minutes in the preseason, hurt himself. No big surprise there. Missed the opener. He's back. I would be shocked if we get more than 24, 26 minutes from him tonight. Just my guess. Why rush him back here? Besides, you have Andre Drummond in a revenge match going against Detroit. He actually wanted to stay in Detroit. One of the rare people who wanted to stay in Detroit. They shipped him out, and then they brought in a whole bunch of centers. Why? I have no idea. Terry. But Garland, Sexton, okay in tournaments. Drummond, I think, is a reasonable play. But don't get caught with stars in your eyes with Larry Nance there, because that was a box score without Kevin Love. And then on the other side, Pistons, a little bit of a mess. Blake Griffin's price is back up to where it should be appropriately. Not much of a deal there. DeLon Wright, there's a whole lot of other options. Killian Hayes, he's a rookie. Come on. Hard to trust him. Jeremy Grant, he's going to be all over the place with his usage and who's getting shots. So Mason Plumlee, really the only one I like there in Detroit. Figure he's going to get about 30 minutes. He averaged about 1.1 fantasy points per minute in Denver during his time there. So we know he's effective. The only issue is they got a lot of bigs. Who knows? We're going to see a Jahlil Okafor sighting at some point. But this game, kind of a stay away for me because we have 8 others to choose from. What do you see from this battle of the Midwest?
Yeah, not a ton that I love in this game. I don't think I can trust what we're going to see for the minutes for Kevin Love. If you want to play Andre Drummond, that's fine. He's got a decent boom number on FanDuel from us. Not so much on DraftKings, where he's much more expensive. But at the 8,400 on FanDuel, with the projection we've got on him, he makes a decent play at the ownership. So I could see getting some Drummond. Not really any of the rest of these guys. If I got a little bit of Garland or Sexton in some lineups here and there, if I was running 150, I'd be okay with it. but it's not something I'm really shooting for. Isaac Okoro, not really a guy I expect to produce a ton right out of the gate in terms of fantasy scoring or, really points, kind of hustle player. Larry Nance, you mentioned with Kevin Love coming back, questionable minutes there. Not really sure what his role would be tonight. So nothing really to get excited about on that one. On the other side of things, I never really get excited about Blake Griffin. I think Jordan Klein, our producer, mentioned to me that he was going to be rolling him out before, and I kind of give him a shudder and not really a fan of it. But looks like he's getting some ownership on both sites. He's fine. He's certainly not expensive. He's just kind of washed at this point. He's not a player I get excited about. But if he was coming up for me, I would probably want to be below the field across 150, but I'd be okay with having some of Blake. Outside of that, you mentioned Plumlee. I definitely think he's in play. Decent price on both sites. You're getting some ownership for him on over on DK. Not getting much ownership at all on him on FanDuel, but he's at 5,900, more expensive on FanDuel, and you're going to run into that opportunity cost issue with the one player position. Outside of those guys, not really many players I want to get to. Derrick Rose could certainly be in play. We've seen him, if he can get 30 minutes, he might break a slate. He's probably going to play 24 to 26 minutes and not do much for us. Jeremy Grant, you mentioned, going to be the focal point of that Detroit offense on a lot of nights, but very good offensive player, so definitely not somebody that I want to roster very much of. Not going to be getting to him.
All right, we're on to the Orlando Magic and the Washington Wizards, my adopted hometown team, since the Seattle Supersonics are not in existence anymore, and I'm not counting the Oklahoma City Thunder. Those are not the Sonics. Sonics will be back probably by 2025, they're saying, because, hey, someone's going to pay an expansion fee of somewhere between $1 and $1.5 billion. The NBA is going to need the revenue, but that does not help us tonight. But you know what does help us tonight? Russell Westbrook with no minutes limit. Westbrook is not going to play tomorrow. He's listed in the starting lineup now. They have cleared. He wants to play in back-to-backs. The Wizards are like, nah, they're giving him the no wave. You know why? Because they want to turn him loose when he's there. They want him fresh. And then when he's not there, now Bradley Beal gets to do whatever he wants. And we saw him last year be absolutely phenomenal in the absence of John Wall, making that step, scoring 30 a game, 6 or 7 assists, phenomenal player. So it's going to, about once a week, we're going to go flocking to Beal. And the rest of the time, I think we definitely want to look to Westbrook. Tonight is one of those nights. We are paying full freight, $10,300 on DraftKings, 10,000 on FanDuel, 45 is kind of a deal on Yahoo. He is a core piece for me. They are going to, so the other thing we want to learn, we want to start to see with the COVID game scheduling here is a lot of teams are playing the same team back-to-back in their hometowns, right? Because they want to limit flying, they want to limit travel. So tonight and tomorrow, Washington is hosting Orlando. Tuesday and Thursday, they're hosting the Bulls. Then they go on the road for games Friday and Saturday. So you're going to see that. And the NHL is talking about doing 3 to 4 game sets just to limit travel. So this is something we're going to see. It's going to add a new wrinkle into things. There may be a day off between games, but we're going to see familiar opponents. What's going to change? What's going to be different? So that's going to just be another wrinkle that we get to analyze here. So for me, Westbrook, absolutely a core play. Beal, sort of. Play him a lot tomorrow on Sunday. Don't forget about that because there's not going to be any Westbrook. And then maybe Danny Avdija, who's their rookie. But it's a big slate. I don't think we really need to go there. Davis Bertans is going to be on a minutes limit as he works his way back into shape. So really for me, it'll be Beal in tournaments, absolutely Westbrook. He's in my cash lineup. And then maybe a little Danny Avdija on DK, get that small forward spot out of the way there. I think he's 4,100 or 4,000 there. What do you like from the Wizards? And lead us into the Magic because great matchup for Nikola Vucevic.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was one I was eyeballing right at the top of the slate when I opened this up. But yeah, on the Wizard side of thing, rather, I think you nailed it, Russ Westbrook. I am excited to roster him quite a bit this year. I think the way that they space the floor, it's going to just open up a ton for him in terms of getting to the hoop and kicking the ball out to guys who can actually make threes. You mentioned Bertans is going to be on a minutes limit. That might impact a little bit of the assists upside from that kind of a perspective, but there's still guys around him who can shoot, so I don't think it's going to be a real problem there. So definitely would want to get to a decent amount of Russ. You're paying a premium, but it's Russ Westbrook. He's a living triple-double, so I think there's a good argument to be made for paying for Russ. Beal, pretty inexpensive on FanDuel at 8,100, so I would definitely be running into some of that across 150 lineups. I'm not sure how much I'll get to in the 20 that I'm entering, but I'm curious to see because I do think he's a player with upside at that price. 9,300 over on DK, definitely a little bit less in play. If you wanted to throw him in, I couldn't really argue with it. He's a terrific player, definitely has the scoring upside, but just don't love that price. Getting to guys like Thomas Bryant a little bit, a couple shares of him maybe. If you were running 150 at center on FanDuel, he's not getting a ton of ownership, nice boom percentage on him. Not as much over on DK. He's a little bit more expensive. Another guy over there. DK seems to be doing a bit better of a job with the pricing. Not really a big surprise so far. We saw a lot of that through baseball season and through football season. Taking a look, Avdija is he's kind of in play. I don't get great numbers for him, but that's a product of just not having much history on him, him being a rookie here. So taking a look at what Alex has for him, he's fine if you want to get to him. I mean, he doesn't really cost anything. He's a guy you can stick into the lineups, but I'm not expecting much just based on what I'm seeing here. I think he's a little bit unpredictable for us right now. But again, cost-wise and point per dollar, it doesn't take much for him to get there. So I think we could definitely do that. And then, yeah, like we said off the top, I think on the other side of things, the story definitely begins with Nikola Vucevic. I'm not sure if it ends there, but he is a guy I definitely would want to have a lot of tonight.
All right. Oh, the trick on his name, by the way, don't look at it when you say it. Vooch? And it's Abdi. That's how the Wizards announcers were pronounced. That's as best I go. There was a little different inflection that I'm missing there because I'm Abdia, yeah. So I was looking at Hebrew. Did you know that there are only 5 million native Hebrew speakers these days? That's a primary language, really? And only 1 million with Yiddish. I went down the Wikipedia rabbit hole. So in any event, I was trying to figure some stuff out there. He's Israeli, so I was looking at that because I thought, oh, they were saying Abdia. That sounds a little the V kind of like a B. That was more of a Spanish, a Spanish thing, etc. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah,
but I can kind of hear it now that you're saying it, and with that accent, it makes sense that it comes up that. Right on.
No stone unturned, but there we go. There we go. All right, 4 spots left in that Fred VanVleet fan club. I just retweeted it. You're going to want to jump into that now. Win that with an Awesemo avatar, and hey, you're going to get 1 free month of Awesemo premium content. You can also utilize that same thing in the Awesemo avatar. If you have that, I'm going to drop the link to little rules in this. This is not the Fred VanVleet fan club. I'm giving away 30 days there. But if you win or place in top 3 of some other large contests that meet the criteria here, you can win 1 month of Awesemo premium contest as well. We have a fair number of people that come in on that. So check that out. All right. Okay. From the Magic side, we want anybody that's playing Washington. For me, it's really kind of goes with Markelle Fultz. I'm okay with Evan Fournier, but at 6,400 there, a little bit spendy. There are plenty of other options. Aaron Gordon, yeah. I do like Nikolai Vucevic, but at 9,100, we're kind of getting into the range of Joel Embiid and some other guys. So tournaments, yes, but primary plays, not so much, which is a little bit of a surprise considering this as a 231 over-under. But particularly on DraftKings, the Orlando Magic are relatively well-priced for this particular matchup. Anything else from this game?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, I think Fultz is definitely in play to at least some degree. We saw him succeed a little bit the other day. Fournier is a guy that he's always in play, it seems like. He's always at a price that kind of gets him into some of my lineups, not huge distributions of them. But then when I check the scores in those lineups, it seems like he always disappoints me, and then I don't have him on the nights that he goes off. So he's a guy I don't avoid, but I don't love when I get to him. And he doesn't seem to be popping up a ton for me, but I couldn't really blame you if you were playing him. Terrence Ross, I think, is interesting just as a guy who with some scoring upside off the bench for not much money on either site. You could see him come in and get hot, hit a couple threes, and put up a nice little sneaky score. Not drawing any ownership at all on FanDuel, where he is somewhat interesting at 4,600, getting a little bit of attention over on DK with that multi-position eligibility for only 4,500. Nice value play over there. Outside of those guys, nothing really much that I'm seeing. It's all about Vooch for me, and on this, I think he dominates that center spot. Like him a lot on FanDuel. You mentioned he's more high-priced over on DK. Only 8,200 on FanDuel, I think makes a lot of sense there.
All right, on to our next game. We do have the Knicks starting lineup. We're going to get Alfred Payton starting at point, RJ Barrett, Reggie Bullock, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson. Robinson, bit of a foul-prone guy. It's going to be a tough matchup for him going against Joel Embiid. We've got a couple of Knicks that are out. Abdi Toppin, their rookie first-rounder, is out, as is Emmanuel Quickley. So that means Alec Burks coming off the bench in revenge action here is an intriguing play. But again, we're seeing tonight being a very good stars and scrubs build. These are pivot plays, nobody overly exciting. I am dabbling with putting, coming down to a decision point for me on DK cash lineups of going with Julius Randle or playing around a little bit and going to Domantas Sabonis. We'll talk about that one there. Randle flirted with the triple-double. We have a new coach here in New York. We're not playing the same guessing games, so I like that. On the other side, I think Seth Curry is interesting, but again, not really value priced on any of the sites. Ben Simmons, this is a nice matchup for him, but a whole lot of at 9,700 on DK. And then Joel Embiid at 10,200. Very, very interesting, but we got a lot of stars tonight. We're going to get to James Harden, but there's some cheap centers that I want to go to, especially Christian Wood, and we already talked about Bismack Biyombo. So I'm not really doing cartwheels here for the Sixers. They do have a 111 implied total, one of the fourth highest, I think, on the night. We know where their production is going to be concentrated. Not really getting in any of them. So for me in this entire game, outside of Julius Randle, I'm not really liking a lot. Can you play Mitchell Robinson on FanDuel? Do you want to give up your center spot where you can get 3 points for blocks? Boy, he can rack up the points there.
Doesn't look like I was getting much of my guy Mitch, which I usually do get to him a fair amount at least.
Oh, you're a Knicks fan. I'm sorry. Take it away, sir.
I know that sentence is supposed to end with "You're a Knicks fan. I'm sorry." There should be nothing after "I'm sorry" in that sentence. My poor, pathetic Knicks. I do like Mitch. He's got a lot of upside. I think he's a kid who's got tremendous future. And if they bring him along right, or if he gets traded to a better organization, could be a real star in the making at the center spot, particularly defensively, like you mentioned. Tremendous ability to block shots. What he doesn't have, and Adam mentioned this in the free deep dive column, is he's not a good post-up defender. And Embiid is a guy who goes to the post-up pretty fair amount of the time. So I think this is a spot where Mitch's defensive reputation is not going to hold up, and Embiid's going to push him around, push him off the court. We're probably going to see a fair amount of Nerlens Noel in there trying to match up against Embiid. So not a spot where I think I'm really going to be getting to much of my guy Mitch there, even with the very low price, 5,400 on FanDuel, not drawing a ton of ownership. Now that I'm looking at the boom number on him too, compared to the ownership, maybe I stick a couple of them in there on FanDuel. But I don't love it. It's not the spot where I normally would be playing him. I do think that Alec Burks has some interesting value. Tibbs has mentioned that he's expecting to try and get Burks some of the backup point guard minutes. The Knicks are very much off of Frankie Ntilikina. They don't want to play Dennis Smith at all. So that's where those minutes are likely to go. I think he's going to basically run Elf Payton, Alec Burks, and Julius Randle into the ground because Tibbs doesn't care about veterans. And at 26 years old, I guess Julius Randle is one of his veterans, but certainly Burks at 29 is going to get that treatment. I like RJ Barrett. I think he's got decent upside. 6,300 is pushing the limits of where I would really want to spend for him. 6,600 over on DK, probably right at that ceiling right now, but I think we can maybe get him. He's not getting a tremendous amount of popularity. He's a kid who I think has some upside, and he's a focal point of their offense. They're trying to develop him into being a primary scorer. So I think there's some value in playing a little tiny bit of RJ Barrett, despite the low overall point per dollar. Outside of that, on the Knicks, not really seeing much. Over on the Philly side of things, I think it's about the three main guys, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and Ben Simmons. Harris let us down big time the other day, but I think he's definitely back in play again. Not a guy I'm ever getting right and ever really comfortable putting into rosters. I feel like I get the result that we got the other day from him more often than not. But I think he's in play just based on where the numbers are for him. So I would go back to him again. Embiid, I mentioned, think he's going to dominate the matchup. Definitely in play for me on both sides, particularly stronger on FanDuel, where you're getting him at a bit of a discount comparatively. And then Simmons, kind of a fine guy, not somebody I'd be getting to really based on the numbers that I'm seeing. But if you did get him, I wouldn't really object to it here. I think he could certainly put up a score.
All right. I see. I'm looking. We don't have an NFL show after us, Terry. So you know what? At lock, I'm going to give you guys 5-minute rundown here for the showdown slate. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to get us up to 200 likes. So let's get us up to 200 likes there, and you're going to get bonus content sponsored by today's sponsor, Awesemo. All right, heading on to our next game here, the Pacers, the Bulls. Another one of these that it's not overly exciting. Now, the thing that shocked me on this one is that the Bulls are the Bulls are just 5-point underdogs. I thought this would be higher. The Bulls, yes, they disappointed us in their last game. Wendell Carter Jr. was an unmitigated disaster. That was just one game. So I don't mind going back to him. Zach LaVine, definitely a solid option, particularly in tournaments. Kobe White, another tournament option, particularly at a very nice price on DraftKings, $6,900. I am going heavy on these guys on the 2-game 8 o'clock slate, but not really in my main contest. On the other side, I really, really, really like Domantas Sabonis. Now, people were asking, I saw in chat, do we worry about the blowout? The answer to that is no. We don't know when blowouts could happen. We don't, if it is, he's probably going to be getting there. In his last game against the Knicks, which they won by 14 points, he had 58 DK points, played 37 minutes, had nearly a 30% usage rate. In his 3 preseason games, he was averaging 27% on the usage rate. That's even a little bit higher than what it was last year. His minutes, and Adam pointed this out on the NBA strategy show this morning, his minutes have been very staggered with Miles Turner. That's very helpful because he being Sabonis is now the backup center. So he's, in the small ball world, he's getting to go down to the 5, which means there are more rebounds for him. Not that Miles Turner is a great rebounder. He's more of a weak side shot blocker than anything else, but he is getting a tremendous amount of opportunity here. We know he can pass. He gets the boards. He doesn't get many blocks himself, but he's going to get the shots and the usage. So I really like Sabonis. He's my main guy in this one, but we're running out of center slots. Thankfully, we can get him on power forward at a couple sides. But for me, it's Sabonis and it's Wendell Carter Jr. That's really it from this game. Maybe a little Kobe White, but when we get into that 2-game slate, that's where I'm sort of, getting into the strategy here. But with 18 teams in action, nobody's really popping for me. What do you like in our other battle of the Midwest?
At 7,500 on FanDuel, I definitely want to be in the Zach LaVine business. I think he's got tremendous upside at that price. Over on DK, I can see, definitely getting away from it. What is he, 89 over there? That's a big, big price difference. It's 7,500 on FanDuel. He's got a very solid boom percentage. He's a guy that we know is going to get usage. You know he's going to get a lot of minutes. We've got him pegged for 35 minutes now. He's like a 31% usage guy last year. So I definitely think he's in play, firm upside. And I think he's a potential slate breaker. I really do like the upside for him. Taking a look at some of the other guys, Larry Markkinen, maybe a little bit in play, not drawing a ton of ownership and getting a decent amount of minutes, a good amount of minutes and a decent boom percentage on our boom bust tool here. So I think he could be in play there. Outside of that, there's not a ton of other guys I'm going to, other than you mentioned Wendell Carter, who's definitely in play again. Super cheap on FanDuel, only 5,100 over on DK. So he's in play on both sites, drawing less ownership over on FanDuel. And again, a very nice boom percentage in the boom bust tool. So I think he's a guy we could get to. But again, that's the one center site. So you're going to be dealing with opportunity costs. Would you rather play Wendell Carter with what could be a very low floor as well? Or would you rather get to one of the big centers that we know are on the board, like a Cat, like an Embiid? So it's a question mark. I think there's enough value there where you could play a few shares of them in a small set of lineups, and you could get that out to 10, 15 lineups if you wanted to across 150. On the other side of things, I think it's definitely all about Sabonis, like you said, on both sides, really. It's the same price, 8,500 on both sites. I really like the numbers on him. I think you said it all, basically. He should be seeing plenty of opportunity. He should be getting those backup minutes, Turner at the center spot. So love him there. Just taking a look. Oladipo, I want to see something from him before we start rostering Oladipo again. TJ Warren, everybody was really excited about him coming out of the bubble. He's fine. He's a guy with upside. He had that upside before the bubble. He flashed it a lot in the bubble. The price isn't extreme, so you can definitely get to him. I don't hate that.
All right, we're moving along nicely here. 24 minutes to go. We've got 4 games left. Got a super chat here from Corey Burness. He's asking, how do you feel about Harden and Wood as a stack, as well as SGA and Basley? I like all 4 of them. They are... So for me, Harden and Wood are core plays across the board, and we'll break down that Houston game when we get to it. SGA was coming into the day until we knew for sure that Houston was actually, well, we still don't know for sure, but they're on track to play. They didn't have any more positive tests, contact tracing, etc. Otherwise, SGA was going to be one of my main guys. I really like SGA this year. They're building the team around him. I think he's phenomenal, and I think Bosley, I believe it's Bosley. I don't know if it's Baisley or Bosley. Getting confused.
Bosley's the guy from Charlie's Angels, isn't he?
Oh, well played.
But Basley.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. We'll wait for a 3-game slate, like you said earlier, when we do that. However, I think you're on the crab, as they say. If you were watching, what is the dangerous? What is it? What's the crab show on? I'm blanking on it now. The Alaska Fisherman, Deadliest Catch.
Deadliest Catch, yeah.
God, I like the first 10 seasons. Watched every episode. I haven't watched it in like 4 years.
Yeah, same here. Since they went away from like a lot of the old school captains, I think a couple of them died off or whatever. Retired, whatever it was.
They're not as it's not an old man's game, that's for sure. But I think you're not going to be alone on Harden and Woods tonight, and I do like SGA as a pivot away from the Westbrooks, the Hardens, etc. You get about a 20% discount in pricing on the various sites that you're playing on, and it will help facilitate a different build if you go that route. So I really like him in tournaments. He was going to be kind of my cash mainstay. Things changed because it's the NBA in the midst of a global pandemic. So that's going to change all the time. But I do think SGA is a core building block as well as Harden and Wood. So thank you for the super chat, Corey. We much appreciate that. Ooh, I see we got we got almost 250 likes, Terry. So we're gonna stay on. I've written 2,000 words on this game, so not to fear. I'll run through the NFL showdown slate quickly for everyone since we don't have a show there. But tell you what, get us up to 300 likes, and I'll put in 10 DK head-to-heads for NBA. I haven't done this yet. Ooh. So I've got and I haven't started building my lineup. So fortunately, I've got my cash lineup in, and then I have a placeholder lineup with not including the people on the 3 games locking at 7:00. But there's a lot of moving parts here for me. I'm telling you, it's a good time to chase me. So get us up to 300 likes, and I will drop in some cash games there.
Get us up to 500. We'll hang out, talk about movies all night, whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, we'll get tattoos on air. It'll be great. It'll be all sorts of fun. All right. We are going to skip a game there. No, we are on the Raptors and the Spurs. Fred Van Elite. Yeah, it was a crappy first game. Yeah, he got paid. Yeah, he looks like one of us. He's a little slower than everybody, kind of a little shorter than you'd expect, and a little doughier than you would expect. But he got paid, and it well worth it for the 4-year player coming out of Wichita State, undrafted of all things. So great story there. The Spurs, this is not the defensive minded, slow-paced Spurs anymore. Those players, all gone. So this is an intriguing matchup. The other thing to remember, let's see, this one's in San Antonio. So Toronto is playing in Tampa this year. So not that some places do have some fans coming in, very limited on the indoors, unlike obviously the NFL stadiums that are going up to 20 to 30%. Some fans or some stadiums are allowing up to 1,000 fans. Some are doing friends and family, and some are doing nothing. So just know Toronto is not able to go back and forth over the border, so they are going to be playing in Tampa Bay. So what we've got here, again, nothing overly exciting. I think Pascal Siakam is very interesting, but with so many players on the slate, we're not really having to pivot away from ownership going to Julius Randle or Domantas Sabonis, et cetera. But he's probably my favorite guy. I'm not fired up for Fred VanVleet, but he is 7,300. I'd rather go stars and scrubs on DK, so he's not really popping for me there. One person who is and was in my original cash build, I have since moved away from him, but DeMar DeRozan on the other side. He actually does usually show out against his former squad. He was someone who did not want to be traded. So it's one of those, it's you guys again games. I don't want to say revenge, but the other thing that helps, he's getting a boatload of usage. We have no Derek White. So you're going to see a little bit of DeJounte Murray. He's not cheap anymore, 6,400 on DK. You're going to get a fair amount of LaMarcus Aldridge. He'll be going against the new look pivot position for Toronto. They're starting Aaron Baines. They've got obviously Chris Boucher coming in as the backup, and then Alex Len probably won't play, but at some point he'll score 40 fantasy points and break the slate when a bunch of people are hurt. Again, not an overly exciting game. Oh, Keldon Johnson. 5K on DK. There are some other places I've gone. He was in my shell lineup originally. How do you like Keldon Johnson, DeMar, DeJounte, LaMarcus, and I guess Siakam would be like the really the only Raptor I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think jumping to that part of the point, I think, definitely Siakam is the primary Raptor that I'd be interested in over on DK. Maybe I could argue to get to a little bit of Freddie VanVleet. If I got to a little bit of Kyle Lowry, he's not a guy I'm going to, rush to take out of my lineups, although he's getting more ownership than he is getting a likelihood of being hitting the boom number. So definitely something to consider there. Drawing it over to FanDuel, I think there's a little bit of play around Aaron Baines at the center spot. Another guy, super cheap. He's a value center. So again, you're hitting that the potential limitation with only being able to play one center and the opportunity cost. But comparatively, you look across over at DK, where he's another value play, but he's getting a tremendous amount of ownership over on DK, not really getting the same ownership, nearly the same over on FanDuel, where he's got a very strong potential to put up a boom score in our boom bust tool. So like him there, he's not, a focal point of their offense. He's, about a fantasy point per minute producer in 2019, 2020 on both sites. So he's a guy that, you can get to a little bit, not somebody I would be going over the top for. On the San Antonio side of things, definitely I'd like to get to DeJounte Murray in this situation on FanDuel, less so on DK. He's drawing a little bit closer to even money as far as his ownership to his boom percentage over there, but he's rosterable. Certainly a guy who's going to see minutes, see opportunity. DeRozan, similar story. He's not a player I love to get to, but I understand where you're coming from. I understand the narrative that you're talking, and the numbers are there for him. So he's just a player that I have a little bit of dislike for. Not going to rush to take him out of my lineups when he does appear, but I'm never happy when he really pops in there. And I think LaMarcus Aldridge might be in play, just judging by the fact that not that many people are really getting to him on either site. He's a guy that we know can produce. He's around a fantasy point per minute the last couple of years, so a little bit over 1.12 in 2019, 2020. So I definitely think he's in play. Not somebody I'd go over the top with, but probably get over the field on him. If I was running 150 lineups, it wouldn't be that difficult to with these ownership numbers. Beyond that, not really interested in the Rudy Gays of the world, the Lonnie Walkers. I think Keldon Johnson is fine. I don't get excited about him, and I think the ownership is there. So I don't think you're really getting much opportunity from him. I think you're just going to be kind of right with the field unless you really go over the top rostering him. So he's there. It makes sense from a value perspective, but I think people are going to be on him. You're not really going to be unique by playing him.
All right. If you go to DraftKings NBA head-to-heads, $1, search for EMac. I just put in 10 $1 head-to-heads. You got us up for the likes. I appreciate that. Help us out. Subscribe to the channel as well. We're trying to get to 50,000. That's our next milestone. It is right around the corner. That's what helps keep things free here for you and in front of the paywall. Speaking of free, we do have some free content. Today it is for the NBA, or probably the NFL. You can check out the Awesemo NFL rankings. Those will also be free through tomorrow, but that's something you can kind of get a look at and see what are the different tiers that Alex puts things in. He uses a derivative of his projections, the ownership, and the value ratings to assign people a grade, like A, B, C, D, E, like in school. If you're good, you get an A. If you're bad, you don't. There are 2 ratings, one for value and one for projection. So if you find somebody who's double A, they're very good. You want to jump on those players. I find it very helpful for MMA as well as NASCAR, since those are not sports I'm naturally inclined to follow a lot. Minnesota Timberwolves at the Utah Jazz. We've got the Jazz favored by 10. A little bit of revenge here for Ricky Rubio. Anything that pops for you on this game?
Sorry, let me just pull it up. I was in a different window there. So
sorry, I was going to cough, so I was trying to throw it to you there. But
my bad. I was trying to sort my crunch while you were talking there. Yeah, I got it up. I got it here now. So I mentioned earlier, I think it's all about Karl Anthony Towns on the Minnesota side of things. Definitely a guy, one of the dominant centers in the league. And I think 9,600, bit of a suppressed price. I think he's probably over a 10K player on FanDuel. He sneaks over 10K over on DraftKings. The ownership's not really there on either site, and I think the numbers are there to support it. There's some narrative going around. He had immense family tragedy from COVID-19 during the offseason. They lost like 7 members of their family, including his mom, which is obviously horrible and tragic. So there's some narrative about that, his motivation, his state of mind. That said, it's not something we can account for in any kind of projections or anything. So I think we just have to trust the numbers, trust that he's going to be the 1.45 fantasy point player per minute player that we know and trust, and just slot him in. So I'll be getting to some Karl Anthony Towns. Not a ton else that I like on the Minnesota side of things. I would take a little bit of Rubio, I guess. I would take some some D'Angelo Russell if I got to him, but he's not one of my favorite plays on the slate at that position. I think there's a tremendous amount of value at the position on both sites, and particularly on FanDuel. So I can see getting to him in some shares, more so on FanDuel probably, just based on where he's at boom to ownership wise. He's pretty much even money on over on DK from that perspective. Outside of those guys, not really much I'm excited to roster on the Minnesota side of things. Then looking over to Utah, I think there's definitely some opportunity around Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell on that side of things. And you can certainly make an argument for rostering some Bojan as well over there.
All right. Reminder, we will stay on a few minutes after and talk about that NBA, or probably the NFL slate. Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, and Jakeem Grant are all active. Devontae Parker is out. The other 2 are active. And then Kevin Love and Dante Exum for Cleveland will be on a minutes restriction, but it's a secret minutes restriction, and we don't know what it is, which is about as useful as they will be monitoring their minutes. We kind of mentioned earlier, I'm thinking I don't see more than 30 for Love. 24 to 26 seems right. Let him get out there and knock the rust off. He only played 10 or 15 minutes in the preseason before being out. So check that. Check your expectations.
26.
Yeah. All right. 2 games to go. We got 11 minutes left. Phoenix Suns, Sacramento Kings. We got dueling late night hammers here, 2 10 o'clock games. The Suns, rather interesting here. They are favored by 3.5 going into Sacramento, 227.5 over under here. I like this game. I like it a lot. I think Chris Paul is an excellent play. I think Devin Booker is incredibly overpriced at 9,800 on DraftKings, but that makes him a contrarian option. I think DeAndre Ayton is good. The guys that really pop for me, Buddy Hield, particularly on FanDuel, lock him in, is my opinion. Buddy Hield, his usage didn't really change if he was a starter or coming off the bench or who he was with, or his fantasy point production. But without Bogdan Bogdanovic there, that opens up more minutes for him. And also no more Vlade Divac. They've kind of cleaned things up a little bit. We still have Luke Walton. God only knows what's going through his head as a coach. But Buddy Hield is top 3 player there. It's going to be Darren Fox. It's going to be Bagley. It's going to be Hield that's going to do anything for them. I like this one. Neither team's really inclined to play defense. Play Fox, play Bagley, go for Rashawn Holmes, revenge if you're into that sort of thing. And then Hassan Whiteside, 4K on DK, more of a late slate play for me. He and Rashawn Holmes are going to kind of split those minutes, but he's coming off the bench. Holmes is starting. Holmes should get close to 26 to 28 minutes, in my opinion. what do you like from this game? And then we'll have plenty of time here to talk about the Rockets.
Yeah, I think Buddy Hield is definitely in a good spot. You mentioned getting just some of the clutter out of that lineup should benefit him tremendously throughout the season, just in terms of getting a lot of minutes. I definitely think the opportunity is there for him. We've seen him, break some slates in the past. He's got a great scoring upside. So I think he's in play at the position. The only thing on FanDuel, he's drawing right around the same amount of ownership as his decently high boom score. So you're not getting sneaky with him by any means. He's only 5,600 over on FanDuel, another one of those just super high value shooting guards. At a higher price over on DraftKings, he's drawing still a decent amount of ownership, and it's actually higher than where we've got him in terms of boon. So might be a good idea to get away from him over on DraftKings if he's somebody you were considering, and just kind of walking away from him and from the perspective of if it's going to be a mistake, let somebody else make it. You mentioned Rashawn Holmes. Definitely think he's in play on both sites. Really, nice projection on him and not a very high price. Like him better on DK, where you can kind of flex him around a little bit rather than sticking him again into that one center spot and playing a super cheap center. Low floor, of course. He could definitely bust for you. So not a guy I really trust. Outside of those guys on Sacramento, if I got to some De'Aaron Fox, I'd be fine with it. But he's not a guy who's really coming up a lot for me. And then on the other side of this one, nothing really, no real love for Chris Paul. I like both players, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, a lot, but on tonight's slate, they're not really popping up for me a tremendous amount. Both would not be guys that I would, object to having, but they're just not really coming up. DeAndre Ayton is a guy I would like to try and give him a few more minutes, or if I was running 150, I would be doing a few things with my sorting process to make sure that I got to some shares of him, because I think he's in a very good spot here. I like the price a lot on FanDuel, decent price for him on DK, and he's not getting a ton of ownership. So I could definitely see playing some DeAndre Ayton if you can get him in.
All right, that is going to take us to the final game of the night. We've got 8 minutes until a lock. We are going to stay on and talk a little bit of football when we get some breathing room here, since there is not a football show. But let's talk about Houston. So they are without Chris Clemens, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Mason Jones, Ben McLemore, Kenyon Martin Jr., and Eric Gordon. So they have 9 players. Yikes. Harden disinterested, but hey, he can stand around and shoot threes. So we have him as the highest raw point projected guy. Play him in cash. Everybody else is going to. There's no way to make up if he decides to care a little bit and it's not completely fat Harden. And even if it's completely fat Harden and he takes 15 threes, he can still get 50 fantasy points. That's going to be hard to make up. His upside, we're not going to see 85 fantasy points is my guess. But I do want him in cash. Sterling Brown is definitely somebody you want to look at, particularly on DraftKings, where he has small forward eligibility and takes care of that pesky spot. You've got Daniel House. You've got Bruno Caboclo. Yeah, Christian Wood, lock and load, especially on DK. Those are the main guys there. On the other side, Nurkic is popping in our models. I don't know what to do with that. I'm okay with Damian Lillard, but I'm not really overly excited by anybody else from the Trailblazers. How do you like our late night hammer?
Yeah, I think on the Portland side of things, I think Nurk is in play just from a perspective of I don't really know who's going to shut him down on the defensive side. I think he's going to be able
It's not like he's going to get run off the court particularly either, because PJ Tucker's going to be there.
Right. So, yeah, I think
Christian Wood's going to be there. Yeah, and Nurkic is mobile enough.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's a good spot, and definitely another one that I don't think people are necessarily paying enough attention to, and it's a good price on both sites, only $7,000. So definitely think Nurk's in play there. Not a ton else I'm getting to. I'm sorry. I am getting to some Dame Lillard. He's a guy that pops in my model a little bit, which drives part of my sorting process. So I'll have some of him, but based on Alex's numbers, based on our boom bust tool, not really a play that I would push too hard just because he's coming up. He does have good numbers, but he's coming up pretty much even money as far as the ownership goes. So that's one I would probably make a bit of an adjustment with. given more time and given a full slate. McCollum, if you wanted to get to CJ McCollum as a shooting guard, not drawing much ownership on either site, like him a little bit better at a cheaper price on FanDuel, but would certainly be fine with getting a CJ McCollum in this game where there should be some offense flying around. This is all, of course, assuming that the game actually happens. We have to keep in mind that it's only coming up on 4 o'clock in Portland. That's plenty of time for James Harden to get to a strip club and cause some havoc. On that side of things, it's all about Harden, Christian Wood, like you mentioned. Sterling Brown's in play as a value guy. I'm getting to an uncomfortable amount of Daniel House, which I never like, but he's coming up for me, and I think he's in play. But I think really, as far as good players on this offense, it's all about Fat James Harden and Christian Wood. And I agree with you. I think even Fat James Harden could put up 50 pretty easily here.
Yeah, I don't want to be without it. I had messaged Ship My Money earlier and asking him, was he going to put Harden in his cash line, Harden and Westbrook? And my thought was, okay, I wasn't going to do it. And then I started building, and I'm like, you know what? Got to get SG out, put Harden in. Just don't screw around with that tonight. Go for the block. So many people are going to be on him. We're not going to be sneaky with pretty much anyone from Houston. But that's what you want to give consideration to on that front. All right. I should probably make some lineups, huh, Terry?
I think it might be time with
yikes. Is this going to be one of those where I'm riding the cash game train?
I love that. That's part of the show for the fans out there.
God.
People like to watch you sweat for some reason.
Yeah. I don't even know what to do. Let's see. So here's somebody. Well, one, I like too many of the plays tonight. So I'm going to put everybody at 50% ownership. I am going to ask it to play a bunch of people from this last game or the last 2 games of the night in Cruncher, because that way I can go move some things around. Normally I would punt on this, but there's enough people I like particularly with Westbrook, to a lesser extent Beal, and some of these guys that I'm going to have some regrets if I don't get them.
Yeah, and there's not a lot that's up in the air tonight, so you can kind of do that and feel at least safe enough jamming some of those rosters in. And then if you're getting enough plays from the later games where you can still get in there late swap and get them at least kind of near where you were going to have them originally, I think it's worthwhile for you. Makes a lot of sense. That's something a lot of people don't take advantage of enough. I was talking about it the other day with Kyle Dvorchak on the football show, and it's really true. It's, people do not take advantage of the late swap and the ability to get in there, kind of make some changes, monitor where the ownership is going, where the public's going to be, and really game some of your lineups in comparison to if you're going to be duped with, 10, 15 other lineups. Make some changes, make some sense. And then, of course, when obvious substitutions, game cancellations, COVID-19 outbreaks happen, you can jump in there and use late swap-tomizer on Fantasy Cruncher and get your rosters where they need to be.
Absolutely. All right, let's do this. Let's download, and that's the key thing. And I see people in chat already. Oh, this is all part of the fun. It's all part of the tradition. So yes, and this is also why I tend to play in the lower stakes. They're a little more forgiving than the higher stakes and massive volume, but there are also tips and tricks that can get you surviving these sorts of things. Last night, again, I had a very good night, killed it. But what happened? The mass multi-entry guys did not do well.
Sure.
So that was I saw Habro does some write-ups or some. We'll talk about NFL, so stick around. By the time you guys hear this, we're gonna be locked, but we'll do 5 minutes on NFL for the showdown site. So he said 110 out of the, I don't know, it was like 120 MME, 150 max guys lost money. The biggest winner won like $1,500 or something like that. That is kind of harsh.
You're not gonna see it hit the entire swath of people who are putting the 150 maxers that frequently, where it gets everybody like that. That's impressive. Even with the concentration of players that those guys are playing, and us guys when I'm in those, it's gonna get some of them, but to get everybody that way, that's a bad slate.
Yeah, and I mean Jeff Teague was 50% owned on DK, and Eric Bledsoe was 50% owned, and those guys were horrible last night. It's going to happen. So one of the things I've learned here in my time at Awesemo is I've adopted the Awesemo strategy of building a lot of lineups, playing every slate in a lot of different sports. This helps reduce the variance in small sample sizes. Yes, there so many of the sports and slates or whatever are not comparable in the game formats, but what it's doing is it's, if you have good projections and if you have good methodology, aka process, you'll be able to come in and survive. And if you're just, a little bit better than the field over time, that adds up. If you're going for these gigantic boom bust wins, as Adam has talked about plenty of times, Adam's like, I'll have 3 good days that'll make my entire year and I'll make 6 figures for the year. The rest of the time I hate myself, because you're losing, and it's just like, it's horrible. So he's kind of swung back the other way because it's early in the NBA season. We don't know what's going on. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. We 71 days since essentially the regular season ended. Granted, they had some time off, but that was 3 months off, then a ramp up, and then they're down and they're back. So this is not something anybody's quite used to. So play smart, be smart. Chase some overlay, go for some other stuff. But the first few days of the season, and no matter what the sport, I like to just kind of back off a little bit. We've got a long season ahead of us. Hopefully we get this vaccine and things will work out from the pandemic wise, and we won't have to worry about shutdowns, but everything's going to be crazy, right? So on top of all of that, we got to shake off the rust for our process again. Well, I lost the first 2 days in the NBA because I was being stupid and I forgot 2 things that I was doing at the end of last year that was helping me make money. So I tweaked that yesterday. Yesterday worked out for me. I had a phenomenal day. But I'm only playing a couple $100 a night in NBA until I get my sea legs under me. That's okay because I'm playing a boatload of NFL. We've got massive NFL Saturday slates and Sunday slates, and then we got triple header playoff games. Because of the expanded playoffs for wild card weekend. Instead of 2-2, it's 3-3. We got plenty of stuff coming on here. Let the games, let the contests come to you. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to play in this stuff. And this stuff's getting to be incredibly high, top heavy, which makes everything wild. So there we go. All right. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're going to talk a little NFL here, Terry. I am playing some. I did not, because I knew we were on this show. I had not built my lineups, but Terry, one of our editors behind the scenes, gets to edit some of my articles. So he was editing I think you did my NFL article, but yep. Let's go. Let me call that up and then we'll just race through and talk about a few things there. We have the projections. You've got the rankings. Those are free. We drop those into Slack or probably into the YouTube chat. Now I used to call it IMs. Now I just call anything that's messaging or texting, I just call it Slack, which is weird, but
I still miss AOL Instant Messenger. That was college for me.
That was, the internet wasn't invented until I was well into the working world from that one. So let's jump on here. So we know that Devontae Parker is out. We know that Gesicki and Jakeem Grant are going to be playing. Let's look at, so here's some interesting things that you can pull from tonight's game. So the Dolphins want to run. However, they pass way more than anybody's expected. If you use the Awesemo, the newly created Awesemo Advanced Stats page, when they're in game neutral script, so they're not way ahead or way behind and the clock's not ticking down, they only run 41% of the time. What they have been doing with Tua Tagovailoa, obviously the rookie phenom, when they're up, they milk that play clock. So their mix is still more towards pass, but they're taking forever between the plays when they're ahead. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Part of that also is every running back has been hurt at some point for them, or they've given up on them. I mean, they brought in Josh Howard. He's back with Philly because they gave up on him. Matt Breida, still an honorary member of the 49ers, can't play a game without getting hurt. Much like everybody's still there. And then you've got, Myles Gaskin from my alma mater, backed up by, wait for it, Salman Ahmed, who was his backup in college because, hey, 2020. So we got a lot of stuff going around here. So the nice thing about Jakeem Grant is he'll probably get a little bit out of the slot. He will operate a little bit wide, but he's going to run shorter routes. The one thing about Devontae Parker, it's okay that he's out. Tagovailoa, not the best deep ball thrower. Great that Gesicki's in. He has a sore shoulder issue, but I'm okay playing him. The speed guys that have hamstrings worry me. I'm okay going with Grant. He's a little bit cheap. He's not in what is my current cash game lineup. We have Tua Tagovailoa as the 13th ranked quarterback on the full week. So that's for that one. Myles Gaskin, he's been hurt. He's come off the COVID list now. He was, they thought he was going to be back last week, I think it was, but they had Ahmed just go anyway. Breida saw 19 snaps last Sunday. He missed 2 weeks with COVID. Prior to that, you've got Patrick Laird floating around. My guess is it's 60-40 Gaskin and Ahmed tonight. I'm hoping it's Gaskin with the higher leverage plays, and they just liberally use Ahmed to spell him, right? To keep him fresh. And totally fine on that. Lynn Bowden Jr., we have a revenge game. How are you a rookie yet you have a revenge game? The Raiders drafted him in the 3rd round this year. They then traded him to Miami with a 6th round pick and got a 4th rounder back. Talk about, in my article, I said, talk about trading a quarter for 2 dimes. Way to go there. But they wanted out. So there were some apparent off-field issues or whatever, but he's been a fine guy. He was a quarterback most of his time in college. He lines up at running back a little bit receiver, but he's healthy. The other guys aren't. I think Isaiah Ford kind of interesting as well. I haven't seen the full active list. Fun story on him. Miami traded him to New England. New England was like, guess we didn't play him. Oh, shoot, we got to cut him. And Miami said, come on back. And they're still going to get a conditional 7th or 8th round pick, even though he never played for New England because, hey, 2020. So Durham Smith is the other tight end. I think he's still playable as a cheapie. He and Adam Shaheen both played on 60% of the snaps last week when Gesicki was out. But I'm willing to set aside Shaheen and go with Durham Smith on this one. The Miami defense, very, very good. They lead the league with 13. They lead the league with 26 takeaways. Xavier Howard leads the league with 9 interceptions, which is absolutely phenomenal. Shout out to him. They're very good on the outside. So we've got Derek Carr, who gutted me last Thursday. I played the showdown slate. I think I got 3% of my buy-ins back. Yeah. Absolutely gutted me. But that's okay. This happens. Apparently he's healthy. He's not even on the injury report. Wow. But we can play him. We have him 4 spots in our rankings behind Tua Tagovailoa, but we only have him 1 fantasy point behind. So it's very tightly bunched in that one. So the Dolphins, this will be fun. In their last 5 outings, only Pat Mahomes has topped 300 yards. They've allowed 1 passing touchdowns in their last 6 games, besides the 2 that Pat Mahomes had. However, here's their quarterbacks they've faced: Cam Newton, Brandon Allen, Ryan Finley, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock.
Murderer's row.
Okay. T McBee and EMac. You might as well put our names in there too. So context does matter. But do we play Mariota again? I don't know. It's crazy. You've got Josh Jacobs, who should be clearing 1,000 yards tonight if he can get 90 yards. However, he's averaging 3.7 yards per carry. God awful. He is getting everywhere based on volume. What happens against Miami? I don't know. He does have 3, 3, and 5 targets in his last 3 games, but I think he has on the season, he has 42 total. He's averaging 7.2 yards per reception. I'm not really sure what to do with that one. Yeah. On DraftKings, Devontae Booker at 1,200, Jalen Richard at 1,000. Both are absolutely in play. FanDuel, no, because it's half PPR and these guys aren't going to get the volume. But all it takes at $1,000 is to get 2 or 3 catches, 30 yards. You're good. Basically you're a third of the price of a kicker, and you're going to get the equivalent of 2 field goals. That's important. Henry Ruggs is back. He was out with COVID. So you're going to want to look, not look to him. You have fellow rookie Brian Edwards, has played a fair amount, doesn't have a target in his last 2 games, has 1 in his last 3, despite averaging 22 snaps. Not good. Zay Jones takes a hit with Ruggs back. Darren Waller's the de facto wide receiver 1. He needs 34 more yards to get 1,000 on the season. Just putting that in perspective. It's phenomenal. In his last 3 games, 425 yards. Think about that. That's Travis Kelce numbers. Yeah. 29 of 39 targets and 3 touchdowns. Pretty solid. In the last 7 games, the other tight ends have 7 total targets. But it is 2020, so they also have 2 touchdowns. Nice. How that happens, I don't know. Shout out to Jason Witten, caught his 1-yard target for a touchdown on his only target in 6 weeks. Yeah, great. Very nice. So that's kind of your breakdown there. I'm going to drop the link to the full 2,000-word article there in Slack. I see some people asking, what is my cash game lineup? I am not going to post any right now, but I did build my shell lineup. Is my cash game lineup. I have Tagovailoa at captain. I've got Waller, Jacobs, Gesicki, and then both kickers is where I went. I'm in a few 3-mans. I saw a couple names I didn't recognize that I posted head-to-heads. I picked up a couple of their games, and then I'm playing some boosters and such. So there we are for that. I think we got everything, Terry. Thank you to Jordan Klein, who is behind the glass, sticking on there a little bit. But since we didn't have a dedicated show, despite having over 3 hours of NFL coverage today, just thought we'd throw him a little bone there, Terry. Thought we'd throw him a little bone. But thank you. But thank you for joining me on your first NBA show. This is very exciting. You got NBA down. You got NFL. You're going to be on NHL. I do my ceremonial one All-Star break, if there's even an All-Star break this year, appearance on the NHL show. But otherwise, I just stick to the 3 main sports. But thank you for hopping in here. And we've shaken the rust off. It'll be good for us going forward. But we got all sorts of content. Please do subscribe. Helps us a lot. Hit that notification bell. Know when we're going live. We're going live tomorrow at 9:00. 4 hours of NFL content leading up through lock, and then you're going to get live before lock NFL as well for the Sunday Night Football, and you're also going to get at 6:00 tomorrow live before lock NBA style. With that, good luck.